Next up, we have Dr. Frank P. Schulze, the Chief of Surgery at St. Marian Hospital in Mulheim, Germany. Humanitarian surgery from ICSUS and Europe. What are the options?
The combined experience of ICS-US and Germany.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be here in Chicago amongst friends and actually in the backbone of the ICS. I have nothing to disclose and I don't have any conflicts. This was the last slide I showed in Seattle when we were talking about humanitarian surgery, and actually in the last line you see we were discussing if there are piggyback options with existing infrastructure to build up a humanitarian project between the United States, for example, and Europe or Asian countries. But first of all, I want to say I'm happy to be in Chicago. It's my 6th time here to Chicago, with wonderful architecture, with very famous doctors. This is Dr. Douglas Ross. He's from the County General Hospital in Chicago. He even made the TV. Some may know him under his alias. Sometimes he calls himself George Clooney. And you have not only great food in Chicago, you have famous music, and you have wonderful women here. That's one woman in Chicago. And she was here in 2011 and 2012. She stayed 2 years in Chicago, and I was really happy and lucky to meet her in person last year when I was in Hollywood. So, but in Chicago, you also have the 360-degree building. I can recommend it to anyone of you who hasn't done that. And this is a wonderful view. I took this picture last year from the top of the, I think it's John Hancock building. And you see a North Lakeshore Drive, and around here is our wonderful college. I had a great evening yesterday. It's around here in this area, and all of you probably know it. But now I've shown enough entertainment pictures. I'm going to talk about humanitarian surgery. We have about 320 million surgical procedures every year. These are the latest available data from 2012. They were published in the WHO bulletin in 2016. And when I prepared this talk, I realized that there really is a tragedy. We have 7.6 million people living on this planet, but 5 billion people don't have access to surgery, not at all. Even if there's an emergency, 5 billion of these people in this globe, they never have a chance to see a surgeon or a doctor in their life. And on top of the 320 million surgeries that are performed worldwide per year, there's a demand for another 150 million surgeries per year for the most needed operations, not for facelifting or lift-ups or something like that. And 2.2 million surgeons, anesthesiologists, or obstetricians are needed on top of the existing doctors that are in this world. If we look at the global distribution of surgeons, anesthesiologists, or obstetricians, we are in a very comfortable situation in Europe. We have more than 100 doctors per 100,000 people. It's almost the same in the US and even in Russia, which I was very surprised. But as you can see, there are areas on this globe, they have less than one doctor per 100,000. If you look the other way around, this is dark red here. I don't know if you can see it better from here. It looks everything looks the same. Dark red means where's the demand? What portion of the population doesn't have access to surgery? And that's the sub-Saharan Africa, and it's parts of Asia, India, and Indonesia, and all these countries. Of course, they do have doctors, and people can go to a doctor, but you need a lot of money. Under the table payment, and you get everything. And if you see the minimum requirements that are required from the WHO, that means 20 surgeons, anesthesiologists, or obstetricians per 100,000 population. The blue countries are the countries where there's no need to change, 0. But the red countries are the countries where the biggest needs is necessary. So if we want to do humanitarian surgery, we have to focus on this region. That's my personal interest, my personal opinion. So if we took a critical view from what happened from my last talk in Seattle, and today I'm going to present a couple of aspects. First of all, I looked and I checked the ICS homepage. We are always talking about humanitarian surgery. That's a very big thing of the ICS. And there are a lot of young doctors and students, last time in Seattle and today, they are willing and they are eager to do humanitarian surgery. And I have been asked a lot of questions. What project do you work on? What do you do? And then I checked what's written on the homepage of the ICS. I just checked it in April. Very small letters and very few words. So I asked myself, is it understatement? Is it on purpose? Are we humble? Are we shy? Or are we just absent-minded? I don't know. We should advertise it. I mean, people, maybe new fellows of the college, they say, we hear about humanitarian surgery, that's the big thing of the ICS, but we don't advertise it. So since the meeting in Seattle, I stepped forward and tried to find out what can we do. We have to do something, not only to talk. And I contacted Dr. Harald Wehn. He's the chief surgeon of the International Red Cross. The International Red Cross resides in this castle-like building in Geneva in Switzerland. I know him in person, and I said, Harald, can you give us an advice? We want to build up humanitarian surgery, but we don't want to reinvent the wheel always. We would like to sit on something or piggyback up on something that's already existing. And we had a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls, and he was very helpful. But he also told me what the options of the Red Cross are. And he said the minimum requirement per each doctor in a row is to work with them for 3 months. Nobody can do that. Retired doctors can do it, but nobody from us who is willing and who is still active can work for 3 months in a row in a humanitarian project. Second, he told me the International Red Cross, they only are active in war zones, in combat areas or in disaster areas, maybe after a tsunami. And the typical things they do, they are open bone fractures, wound infections, amputations, gunshots, stabbings, injuries, and of course cesarean sections. But we have a lot of experts amongst us. They are not trained to do this. Some are, but many are not. But there's a big demand. So I concluded the Red Cross is nothing we can count on. And then I contacted Bernard Kouchner. He is the inventor, and he was the Minister of Foreign Affairs of France. I met him in Paris, talked to him, and his son is very active. He founded Doctors Without Borders, and it's exactly the same. They work in war areas, in combat zones, and they request a minimum of 9 to 12 months to participate, but luckily they make exceptions for surgeons. Then we only may work for 6 to 8 weeks in a row, but that's not acceptable for most of us. So then I called Harald Wehn again and said, hey, Harald, don't you have another idea? And he said, well, why don't you contact Ian Norton? He founded the WHO Emergency Medical Team. And he's a person, he's from Sweden, and he worked in Australia, and he did a lot of good work in the Pacific region. And then the WHO, they called him and said, aren't you willing to build up the EMT team? And that sounded good because the WHO and the ICS, as you know, are on official relations and we have a good contact. But it's only half of the truth because the ICS is not the only organization with relationships to the WHO. The American College of Surgeons has it too. Just look on the homepage of the WHO. And there are many other organizations. So I checked what's written on the WHO for the EMT, the Emergency Medical Teams, and they have a lot of initiatives and a lot of interesting things. They were founded actually in 2015, but first there was the Haiti earthquake, and then there was the earthquake in Japan and New Zealand, and there was many other things. So the foreign medical teams were founded, I think it was in 2012. And then there was Ebola, and there was a typhoon, and the earthquake in Nepal. And so in the end, in 2015, the EMT was founded by the WHO, and it was used in Ecuador and Haiti and so on. And if you look, actually to become an official recognized team is not that difficult. The organization requests a classification, then they have to present a mentorship program, and they have to document that we are capable to do things and that we have the expertise. Then there's a verification, and actually then there's a classification. So actually for some organization like the ICS, that's not impossible. We could become an EMT officially. It's possible. If you look how many EMTs exist, green means that are true, like in Japan or in Russia or in China, that are already existing, or in Great Britain, existing teams. There are other teams that's yellow, they are in progress, and red, they plan to do so. So that's, as of today, the situation. There are 2 Russian teams, there are 2 teams from Germany, there's a team from Japan, and 2 from the People's Republic of China and Costa Rica. So there are not so many EMTs so far that we can cooperate with. Maybe the Japanese people and our colleagues from Japan. By the way, I'm very happy to meet many Japanese friends over here. So maybe you can comment on the experience of the Japanese EMTs. So in the end, I had to realize that this was a one-way street, because Ian Norton never answered. I tried to call him, I sent him a couple of emails. I said, I'm willing to come to Geneva to discuss the options we have with the WHO and the ICS. I'm not the official representative, but I'm willing to build up a thing, and I involved Dr. Podbielski, and he was willing to go to Geneva himself. And we have many ideas, and we said we are spreading even more. We would like to include like the Japanese or the Indian sections. So in the end, I had to realize it's really difficult. And then I didn't talk to Domingo Alvia about this picture. I thought maybe there's an option, there's the WHSF. Am I telling too much?
Everything is okay.
Okay, I'll try to speak quicker, but
You're at 11 and a half, you're fine.
So I had the idea, we have Dr. Alvia, he has done so many things. I didn't talk to him, he didn't ask me to show this slide. And then I put the screenshot, and I think WSF is a great organization. Not everything is great, but many things. But probably we need to convince him that if we piggyback on his organization, then the ICS logo should appear in some place. Of course, we want to advertise the ICS and not WSF, which is good too. But I think it would be wise to do that. Last year in Seattle, we also had John Tarpley, and I have a good contact with John. I may call him Tarp. He's from the Institute of Global Health from Vanderbilt and in Tennessee, and he has done a lot of humanitarian things in Rwanda and in Central Africa and so on. So I was surprised to realize that there's a whole institute that's doing this. So on a more scientific way, it may be a wise way on alternative to, that's the picture from Seattle, to ask TARP for his expertise or his support. But we all have to think and discuss if this is a good way. We all have to realize that humanitarian help is dangerous. You can get kidnapped, you can get wounded, and you can get killed. So it's not really fun. You really have to, of course, keep an eye on where you are going. And I think these are the regions where the help is needed most urgent. But I personally think that we should keep an eye to be in a safe area. So what are the requirements? We need a team of experts and volunteers. I think we have more than enough. That's good. Maybe a safe area. I would prefer to go to a safe area than to a combat zone. So in Ghana, for example, that's in Central Africa, but that's a true democracy, the only true democracy in Africa. They are a region of need, but I would relax to know that if I'm in a country where I'm kind of safe. We should use existing infrastructure, and this could be WHO EMT, I don't know. It could be the WSF, maybe. It could be Vanderbilt. and we need a platform because we don't want to spend money and time on things that already exist. And then we need, of course, some way of financial support. We had the German section meeting last week in Berlin, and I proposed and requested that the German section should support such a project, an international project, and the Executive Council said, yes, we are willing to do that, like in a scholarship program. For example, the travel expenses of the participating doctors will be covered by the German section for German doctors. That may be a good model, and you can discuss within the US section if this could work with you here within the US section. So I think you should think about a KISS strategy, keep it simple and smart, or keep it safe and scheduled, or keep it specific and surgical, or keep it short and sexy. KISS could even be the name of such a project, Keen International Surgeons and Specialists. I mean, it sounds sympathetic. But of course, if we include the Japanese fellows, we could call the project Geisha, Global Essential International Surgical Humanitarian Action Group, for example. It's just, I mean, we have to find a smart name and my question is the ICS really ready for a humanitarian project in an area of need? I don't mean to bring up curtains or carpets. No, what is it? Wallpapers. Here in a desert zone, we really have to do something. Because we cannot be sure the exclusive status of the ICS to have an official relationship with the WHO. We have it since a couple of years, but we don't do anything with it. There are other organizations like the American College of Surgeons, where I'm a fellow too. They are very, very active, and they have done a lot in the last 14 years. They have programs since 2004. And just look at the homepage of the ICS. It gives you everything. They tell you where you are safe, they tell you which vaccinations you need, where they tell you the name of the ambassadors, they give you literature, they give you everything. So I request that the ICS homepage, it has to be modernized. Others are doing this. The Royal College of Surgeons of England is doing the same. I'm a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons of England too. So there are many, many competitors who are doing very well, and we should do better. So I think a goal without a plan is just a wish, and we have to have a plan. Thank you very much for your attention.
And thank you.